Shabbat Shalom to all who are here at Adith Emanuel in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, in person, as well as those of you who are joining us this morning through what I call the blessing of technology. And for those of you whose custom it is to wear a talit and have not yet put on your talit, I invite you to join me on page 289 in the prayer book, and that's 289 in the brackets. As I wrap myself in the talit, I fulfill the mitzvah of my Creator. Bless Adonai, O my soul. Adonai, my God, how great you are. You are robed in glory and majesty, wrapping yourself in light as in a garment, spreading forth the heavens like a curtain. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehit atef bat tzitzit. And we turn across the page to page 288 in the brackets, as we offer thanks to God for being awake this morning. Modani lifanecha melech v'kayam shehechezarta Binishmati bechemla, Rabba emunatecha, Rabba emunatecha. And on page 290 in the brackets. Matovu O halecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. Matovu O halecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. Va'ani berov chastecha avo beitecha eshtachave el heichal kodshecha be'yiratecha. And we continue on page 291. Page 291 in the brackets, and if you choose as their passages to be read by people in the congregation, you can read, or you can just pass the microphone to the next person. Page 291 in the brackets.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, if one of them were to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to sustain life before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength.
Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. And as we are grateful for our bodies, we are also grateful for our souls. On page 292, the person who has the microphone next. 292.
The soul you have given me, O God, is pure. You created it and formed it and breathed it into me. And within me you sustain it. So long as I have breath, therefore, I will give thanks to you, my God and God of all ages, source of all being, loving guide of every human spirit.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol besar ish. And before we recite our Nisim B'chol Yom, those things for which we are grateful and don't take for granted, I invite people to share maybe something from this past week that you're thinking about for which you are grateful. The snow will wait till tomorrow. Yes? So, Mazel Tov, that your class is going forward. How many students did you have? So more. Nice.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God,
Wait.
sovereignty. Huh?
Not yet.
What's that?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Other things to share for which you are grateful. I am grateful, and I pray maybe this week will be the week where the hostages are free, and we have a deal. And so we're waiting. I'm hoping that this is, well, it might not be tomorrow, it might be Monday. So every time I read an article, I'm like, is this the latest one? And I did see a list of the names. Also grateful to see that the babies are on that list to be freed. May they return safely. Although I have that hope, I know it's also a rough road ahead. And we have to pray that while we have this ceasefire with Hamas in Gaza, we have to remember there's a ceasefire that's coming to a conclusion at the end of the month with Hezbollah, and hope that holds. Meanwhile, there's no ceasefire with Yemen. So we're still receiving rockets. And so I'm praying that little by little, peace will come. And I also think of those who are in Gaza who've been suffering. And, it's enough. And as the hostages are released and families can kind of come to a closure in that one piece and be reunited, there's still long healing from that. And there's a long healing for people who've had their homes ruined. It's going to be a long road ahead. But for this impending time of peace, I am grateful. And so now, please join me, page 293, as we chant. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech vivina, lehavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten laya'ef koach. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir shena me'enai, utnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani b'selem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, Vitzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And we continue on 298, page 298 in the brackets.
These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the words. While the principle remains in the world to come, they are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted to prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah compasses them all.
On page 303, we continue 303 in the brackets with Ashrei. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yahalelucha selah. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrei ha'am shadonai Eloha, tilat l'David. Aromimcha Elohai ha'melech, v'avarcha shimcha l'olam va'ed. B'chol yom avarcheka, ve'ahalela shimcha le'olam va'ed. Gadol Adonai umhulam me'od, v'li gdulato ein cheker. Dor ledor yishabach ma'asecha, ugvrotecha yagidu. Hadar kavod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha, ve'ezuz norotecha yomeru, ugdulatcha asaprena, zecher rav tucha yabihu, v'tzidchadcha yiranenu, chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim ugdol chased, tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav, yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasitecha yevarchucha, kevod malchutcha yomeru, uvracha yidaberu, lehodia livnei ha'adam gevurotav, uchvod hadar malchuto, malchutcha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Somech Adonai lechol hanoflim, v'zokef lechol hakfufim. Einei chol elecha yisaberu, v'atanoten lahem et ochlam be'ito. Poteach et yadecha, umaspiach lechol chai ratzon. Tzadik Adonai bechol derachav, v'chasid bechol ma'asav. Karov Adonai lechol korav, lechol asher yikra'uhu ve'emet. Ritzon yirei av yaseh, ve'et shavatam yishma ve'yoshiem. Shomer Adonai et kol ohavav, ve'et kol harashaim yashmid. Tilat Adonai yidaber pi, vivarek kol basar shem kodsho le'olam va'ed. Va'anachnu nivarech ya me'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah. And we continue on page 312 in the brackets. As we're able, we rise in body and spirit. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala, uv'izman kariv, V'meru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach, Le'olam u'l'ol ne'amaya Yitbarach, Yitbarach v'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shemei dekudesha b'richu Leila min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damin ran v'alma v'meru amen. Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la la ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai Hamivorach. Baruch Adonai Hamivorach Leolam Vaed. Ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la la ya la 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 la. On page 314 in the brackets, we read together in English. The world is sunlight, restoring the soul, rejoicing the heart, bringing light to the eyes. More welcome than gold, a Torah from heaven. I have no light to give the morning, my Torah. My special human gift is words. As I bring my words forth from silence, welcome them, you who redeems the sun from darkness. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. We continue on page 318, 318 in the brackets. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. May be seated. Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam Amazuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizgeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. If the person who has the microphone next could lead us on page 321. 321, or if you want to pass to the next person.
Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Shira chadasha shibechu geulim, l'shimcha al svat hayam. Yachad kulam hodu vehimlichu ve'ameru Adonai imlo leolam va'ed Adonai imlo leolam va'ed Ya la la ya la ya la 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 ya la ya la la ya la 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 ya la ya la la ya la ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Last paragraph on page 322 in the brackets. Tzur Yisrael Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, ufdechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai Tsevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. As we're able, we rise in body and spirit for tefillah on page 323 in the brackets. Adonai sifatai tivta ufiya gitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Just a note of teaching before we enter our Gevurot prayer, the next prayer on page 325. I've been thinking a lot since the fires in LA have broken out about this winter insert that we add, Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashem, that the rain should fall and the wind should shift. And then I had a colleague, a rabbi from LA, who said, we can drop the Mashiv Haruach. We can just focus on Umorid Hagashem. And so for this Shabbat, if you'll humor me, if not, please add the Mashiv Haruach. But in support of that rabbi who said we can drop the Mashiv Haruach, and another colleague who said pray for rain. And when I said I prayed for rain for you, she said, thank you. And I don't know, my prayer isn't going to bring the rain from the sky, but it is giving strength to people who need strength right now. And so I think especially of those who are affected by the fires as we pray the Givurot, praising God for God's strength. Atagi bor leolam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata rav lehoshia, umorid hagashem, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, melech meimit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lahachayot hakol, baruch ata Adonai, mechaye hakol. On page 326 in the brackets. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוכו הארץ, כבודו, אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, הוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. May be seated. We are on page 329 at the bottom of the page. And if the person who has the microphone next would lead us in this prayer.
The meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things of space. On Shabbat, we try to become attuned to holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world.
Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. On page 332 in the brackets, we continue. The person who has the microphone next would lead us. We'll join together in the refrain, Modim Anachnu Lach, which means we give you thanks.
For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations.
Modim
Modim
Anachnu
Anachnu
Lach.
Lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim Anachnu Lach.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
Modim Anachnu Lach.
For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim Anachnu Lach.
For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared.
Modim Anachnu Lach.
For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom.
Modim Anachnu Lach.
For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim Anachnu Lach.
We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds.
Baruch atah Adonai, Hatov Shimcha Ulechana Elehodot. On page 334 in the brackets. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. V'rachamim. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. As we transition our prayer now into silent meditation, I invite, if you choose, to take in a deep breath and let it out as we sink into Shabbat and the stillness of the silent prayer. We might have words on the pages of our Siddur through page 337 lead us in our prayer, or other prayers throughout the prayer book, or we might have those meditations and thoughts lead us in our silent prayer. Adonai Suri Adonai Suri Vegoali Vegoali. We turn now in our prayer books to page 364 as we turn in our service to Seder Kriyat HaTorah for the reading of the Torah. And as we are able, we rise in body and spirit. Mitzion Teitzei Torah, Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah, Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim. Thank you. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadol Adonai iti, Uneromema Shemo Yachdav, Lecha Adonai Hagedula v'Hagivura v'Hatiferet v'Hanetzach v'Hahod Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Lecha Adonai hamamlacha Ve'amit na'aseh lechol erosh Al shlosha devarim Al shlosha devarim Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed Al shlosha devarim Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Ha'olam Omed. May be seated. We have a super treat this morning as Larry Marcus is going to be chanting Torah for us. And it's my pleasure to call up the Gardner family to have the honor of the Aliyah this morning in honor of the memory of Frank. And we start a new book today. The book of the Torah which we'll be reading is Shemot. And Larry's going to be reading from chapter 2, verse 1 and following. And if you'd like to follow along in the Plaut Chumash, it's the larger blue book that's there. We're going to be on page 388 in the larger blue book, 388. Chapter 2 of Exodus, verse 1 and following. And so, your Hebrew names?
Mine?
Yeah.
Reuben.
Ben, son of?
Betzalel.
Nala Amod, Reuben ben Bitzalel,
He's Mordecai.
Mordechai ben Reuven, Levar, and Sarah. What's your Hebrew name? Sarah. Bat Abraham, Sarah Levarech al Torah, Laliyah. Here. Sarah, you want to come here and you can come on this, here. Sarah, come on this side. Let her stand right here and lean on the table. Here. So here, you can put your hand right here. There you go.
Baruch es Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Asher bach.
Rabbanu mikol ha'amin. V'noah salanu es Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen. Okay.
Vayelech ish mi beit Levi v'yikach et bat Levi v'tahar ha'isha v'teled ben v'teret Oto ki tov hu v'hitz panehu shlosha yerachim v'lo yichala od hatzapino v'tikach lo tevet gomer v'tich mera b'chemar v'vazafet v'tasem ba et hayeled v'tasem basuf al savat hayaor v'tetatzav achoto mirachok l'de'ah mayaseh lo v'tahar bat v'tahar v'tered bat paro l'irchok al hayor v'na'aroteha holchot al yad hayor v'tered hatachot hateva v'toch hasuf v'tishlach et amarta v'tikacheha v'tiftach tirehu et hayeled v'hinei na'ar v'oche v'tachmo alav v'tomer miyaltei ha'ivrim zeh.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah semesh v'chayei olam notah b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai, nosein haTorah.
Amen. Thank you.
And you can go down the stairs with this side, with the banister. We turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are in need of healing. And if you're joining us through the blessing of technology and want to add the names of the people whom you're thinking of who are in need of healing in the chat, whether it's healing of the mind or the body or the spirit, please feel free to do so. We're going to be in the middle of page 371, the middle of page 371. And we send our blessings of healing to the following people in our Adith Emanuel family: Cheryl Abeloff, Elaine Moskowitz, Alice Oppenheimer, Dolores Gross, Zev Kane, Tristan Sheehan, Renee Capucci, Aida Velez, Terry Bittman, Anita Fowler, Jill Cullen, David Ebb, Jocelyn Jackson, Elaine Stein, Ethan Cheskis, Moshe Ben Chenoch V'Shoshana, Iris Nadel, Mary Lou Salvador, Chris Cheney, Stuart Ettinger, Philip Lutz, Jerry Dreskin, Yochanan Ben Yehudit, Merrill Green, Joe Wright, Libby Barsky, Malcolm Fletcher, Ellen Bertuglia, Mindy Fisher, Harry Greenberg, Nick Baud, Deb Nielsen, Moshe Ben Elizabeth Theodore, Jennifer Ness, Harriet Eisner, Chaim Ben David, Hugh Morton, Art Bond, Roberta Levine, Jordan Steinberg, Jeff Schaefer, Michael Infanti, Gary Garnick, Rick Ulrich, Ileana Cohn. And if you're here in the sanctuary in person and you're thinking of people who are in need of healing, I would invite you, as you're able, to rise in your place or raise your hand and mention those names aloud as my hand passes through the congregation. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. Nisheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We rise now as we're able, as we lift and rest Torah. see where the book of Shmot begins, those 4 blank lines above the text. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe. V'zot haTorah. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe. V'zot haTorah. Al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. V'zot haTorah. Lifnei Adonai b'yad Moshe. V'zot haTorah. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe. V'zot haTorah. May be seated as we turn now to our prophetic reading, our reading from the Haftarah for this Shabbat of Shmot. We turn in our plowed Chumash in the larger blue book to page 692. Our Haftarah reading comes from the book of Isaiah, from chapter 27 and 28 and 29. And we can follow along on page 692 for the Haftarah reading. And if you want to follow along with the blessings for the Haftarah, we're in the Siddur on page 372. Where is the microphone at this time? Michael, would you like the honor of reading the Haftarah? Okay, so we'll do the blessing before first. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher baTorah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'invi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek.
In days to come, Jacob shall strike root, Israel shall sprout and blossom, and the face of the world shall be covered with fruit. Was he beaten as his beater has been? Did he suffer such slaughter as his slayers? Assailing them with fury unchained, his pitiless blast bore them off on a day of gale. Assuredly, by this alone shall Jacob's sin be purged away. This is the only price for removing his guilt, that he make all the altar stones like shattered blocks of chalk, with no sacred post left standing, nor any incense altar. Thus fortified cities lie desolate, homesteads deserted, forsaken like a wilderness. Their calves graze, there they lie down and consume its boughs. When its crown is withered, they break. Women come and make fires with them, for they are a people without understanding. That is why their Maker will show them no mercy. Their Creator will deny them grace. And in that day, the Lord will beat out the peoples like grain from the channel of the Euphrates to the Wadi of Egypt. And you shall be picked up one by one, O children of Israel. And in that day a great ram's horn shall be sounded, and the strayed who are in the land of Assyria and the expelled who are in the land of Egypt shall come home and worship the Lord on the holy mount in Jerusalem. Keep going. The proud crowns of the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is but wilted flowers on the heads of men bloated with rich food, who are overcome by wine. Lo, my Lord has something strong and mighty, like a storm of hail, a shower of pestilence, something like a storm of massive torrential rain shall be hurled with force to the ground. Trampled underfoot shall be the proud crowns of the drunkards of Ephraim, the wilted flowers on the heads of men bloated with rich food that are his glorious beauty. They shall be like an early fig before the fruit harvest. Whoever sees it devours it while it is still in his hand. In that day the Lord of hosts shall become a crown of beauty and a diadem of glory for the remnant of his people, and a spirit of judgment for him who sits in judgment, and of valor for those who repel attacks at the gate. But these are also muddled by wine and dazed by liquor. Priest and prophet are muddled by liquor. They are confused by wine. They are dazed by liquor. They are muddled in their visions. They stumble in judgment. Yeah, all tables are covered with vomit and filth, so that no space is left. To whom would he give instruction? To whom expound a message? To those newly weaned from milk just taken away from the breast. That same mutter upon mutter, murmur upon murmur, now here, now there. Truly, as one who speaks to that people in a stammering jargon and an alien tongue, is he who declares to them, this is the resting place, let the weary rest. This is the place of repose. They refuse to listen. To them the word of the Lord is, mutter upon mutter, murmur upon murmur, now here, now there. And so they will march, but they shall fall backward and be injured and snared and captured. Assuredly, thus said the Lord to the house of Jacob, who redeemed Abraham, no more shall Jacob be shamed, no longer his face grow pale. For when he, that is his children, behold what my hands have wrought in his midst, they will hallow my name. Men will hallow the Holy One of Jacob and stand in the awe of the God of Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el hane'eman ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al haTorah ve'al havodah ve'al hanviim ve'al yom haShabbat hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lechavod ultifaret, al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umvarchim otach, yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. In the verses that Larry chanted so beautifully this morning, what is the name of the main character? I'm going to repeat the verses, and you'll tell me what the name of the main character is in the verses he read. A certain member of the house of Levi went and took into his household as his wife a woman of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw how beautiful he was, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a wicker basket for him and caulked it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child into it and placed it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. And his sister stationed herself at a distance to learn what would befall him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile. While her maidens walked along the Nile, she spied the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to fetch it. When she opened it, she saw that it was a child, a boy crying. She took pity on it and said, oh, this must be a Hebrew child. Okay, so what's the main character's name? Moses. How'd you know that? Because you knew. All right, but it's so interesting, and this is the thing that I didn't want to tell you before my words. The book that we started, we call it Exodus in English, and in Hebrew it's called Shemot, which means names. And we start out with all these names, but those are the descendants of Jacob. And then we get to this new story where we hear about a man and a woman, and she has a baby, and his sister, and the daughter of Pharaoh, all these job descriptions, or, titles, but we don't know the name until 4 verses later, after the sister, who we know to be Miriam, not named here, brought back the baby from Pharaoh's daughter, also not named here, and not named at all in the Torah. Pharaoh's daughter gets her name from the Midrash, and she's going to bring it back to her mother. Do we know Moses' mother's name? Do you remember? Yocheved, and I'll give that, okay. Also not named here. And at which point, Pharaoh's daughter is the one who names this baby boy. And she names him Moshe because she drew him out of the water. Moshe, from the Egyptian born of, is associated with the word masha, which means draw out. So Moshe is from the Egyptian, interestingly. We are introduced to a number of new characters in this new Torah portion, this new book. The story of the Jewish people, it shifts from those individual narratives between God and Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Joseph, and we're now shifting from those individual narratives to a nation and the people as a whole. And so Shemot, meaning names, is given this title for all those names of Jacob's children. And when we see the names in the new people we're introduced to, we can look and see what their names might mean and how that has meaning to them. When Leah and Rachel are giving birth to who becomes the descendants of Jacob, the children of Israel, the people of Israel, each of them has not only says the name, but it has a meaning behind it. Biblical names are connected with meaning. So who else besides Moshe do we find has a name and we can associate? Or who do we not know their name from this text, but we know later on? So the Levi, the member of the house of Levi, do you know Moses' father's name? Amram, right. So Amram, which means an exalted people. People, a nation. Ram, like heights, raised. So an exalted people. Yocheved, the mother, her name means glory of God. You can see the word kavod, honor, dignity, glory. Yocheved, kavod. All right, so we also have the sister, Miriam. Miriam's name means bitter waters. Mar, bitter. Yam, the sea. Interestingly, or ironically, or serendipitously, we attribute Miriam to be the source of the well of water that was potable water that traveled with the Israelites throughout the wilderness. And here she is, one of her introduction to us is this person who follows along the water. But Miriam means bitter seas. And then the daughter of Pharaoh is, her name is given to us Batya in the Midrash, daughter of God, which is interesting because she's actually the daughter of Pharaoh. And there's this whole tension through the book of Exodus. Who's got the power? Is it God or is it Pharaoh? As if Pharaoh were a god. So, and who is the one who draws the baby out of the water? Actually, it's not Pharaoh's daughter. If we read very closely the text, I believe it was, the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the Nile while her maidens walked along the Nile. She spied the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to fetch it. Of course, the Pharaoh's daughter she's not going to get her hands dirty this way. And so the slave girl is actually the one who gets it. And when Could be Pharaoh's daughter, could be the slave girl. She saw that it was a child, a boy crying. She took pity on it and said, this must be a Hebrew child. It's ambiguous in that verse whether it's the slave who knows that it's a child or it's Pharaoh's daughter. I think most people have interpreted that it is Pharaoh's daughter, that Pharaoh's daughter knows, and she's the one who ultimately adopts him. Let's see. Also in this portion, Shemot, we learned about these names of new characters, Shifra and Pua, who are the midwives who wouldn't kill the Hebrew baby boys. We're also introduced to Ruel, father or grandfather of the Midianite women. Those are the women who are being bullied when Moses flees after he's attacked the Egyptian taskmaster. Zipporah. Who is Zipporah? She is Moses' wife. Zipporah means bird, and Gershom is Moses' and Zipporah's son, who is given the name by Moses. It means a sojourner, or there. Ger, or a stranger, somebody who's traveling. Sham, there. Sorry, here is, Sham is over there. So Gershom, because Moses was remembering that he was a stranger in the midst of all this going on in his life. And interesting, we also get a name for God, this Torah portion. Moses is the reluctant prophet who God is sending to free the people, and says, well, when they ask me who sent me, who am I going to say sent? And God says, Ehyeh asher ehyeh, meaning I will be what I will be. Thus you shall say to the Israelites, Ehyeh sent me to you. We also have Moses' brother's name, who we learned for the first time. Do you remember Moses' brother's name? Aaron, or Aharon in Hebrew, which means of the mountain. The word mountain is Har, Aharon. And we also learn Moses' father-in-law's name, which is Jethro, or Jether, as it is in the Hebrew. And the person who doesn't have a name, as we know in this story, is Pharaoh. Pharaoh only gets a title, like the king, the leader. So the purpose of biblical names was to give meaning to the character and helping us understand maybe what's happening in the moment, maybe also reflecting qualities of that person. This past week, at teen night, I was teaching the students about the names Israel and Palestine. I'm teaching a course for the 7th and 8th graders called, I don't know, everything you wanted to know about Israel, but it's an Israel class. And so many of us are familiar with the understanding of the name of Israel for our country, that it goes back to the wrestling match that Jacob had with this Ish, and we spoke about it a few months ago, or last month, in which this Ish that wrestles with Jacob says, what's your name? And the Ish says, you can't ask my name. And what happens is this Ish gives Jacob the new name of Yisrael, and there's meaning behind it. Why? Because you have striven or wrestled with beings divine and human and have prevailed. So Yisrael means one who struggles, Yisrael, with God. If we think of the word Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, El, our God, so one who struggles El with God. And so the Israelites have descended from that individual into all the descendants, and Am Yisrael, a nation that eventually became Medinat Yisrael, the state, the modern state of Israel. And so where does the name Palestine come from? You have a comment, question? Okay. Can I go through the teaching first? Okay. Hold your thought if you can. Yeah, tell Jesse so, just in case you forget. Okay, so where does the name Palestine come from? during the reign of King David, the Jews' greatest enemy, do you remember who does David slew with the slingshot? He slays Goliath. And Goliath was he was a giant, he was a Philistine, right? He was a Philistine. So the Philistines were the Jewish people, the Israelites' greatest enemy, and they were said to live in an area which we know now today to be what we call the Gaza Strip. The word Philistines comes from a place known in Hebrew as Paleshet, and the ancient Egyptian word is Paleset, and ancient Assyrian it was called Palashtu, and in Greek, Palestine. All those words for Philistines, that comes from, and you can hear, right, the similarities of those ancient cultures and languages in the area. So the Philistines probably came to the region in the 12th century BCE, but after the 6th century BCE, there were no remnants of any kind of written record of their own. And so we only learn about the Philistines from the writings. So they weren't there after like the 6th century BCE. So they were there maybe those 600 years. Unless you look to the texts of the Assyrians, Egyptians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, and of course the Israelites. And interestingly, in these recollections, none of the accounting of these Philistines is a flattering recollection. In modern English, the word Philistine means uncultured bozo, or like a fool. And so there are no Philistines around today. They disappeared in the 6th century BCE. So the people living in the region today, who might call themselves Palestinian, have no relationship, no lineage back to the Philistines of the 12th to 6th century BCE. There was a Greek historian by the name of Herodotus in the 5th century BCE who took a trip around the region, and when he came across the place that sounds like the modern-day Israel, he called that area, a hyphenated word, Syrian Palestine. And this was after the northern king of Israel had no longer existed. Meanwhile, the southern kingdom of Judah was still around, and some historians thought that Herodotus used this name as an alternative word for the land of the Jews. So Syrian Palestine was this homeland of the Jews from this Greek historian. Interestingly, I learned all this week. It was fascinating. In ancient Greek, the word for wrestle is palaestis. So the Greek word for wrestle is palaestis, which sounds a lot like Palestine or Palestinian. Could the ancient Greeks have called the area Palestine as a literal translation of the Hebrew word Yisrael, one who wrestles, because palaestis wrestles, rather than an explicit reference to Philistines? Romans later called the area Syrian Palestine, adopting the name taken on by the Greeks, and though we know that the Romans stole a lot from the Greeks, right? And when the Arab population came through the land in the 7th century CE, this is many hundreds of years later, they adopted the name into Arabic, calling it Palestine, and that name was kept for many, many centuries. Jews, Arabs, and Samaritans living in the area came to be known as Palestinians. I was speaking with a man earlier in the fall who showed me the passport or the birth certificate of his mother, who, it said, Palestine, because it was pre-1948. So Jews and Christian Samaritans, Arabs who lived pre-1948 were in this area known as Palestine. It wasn't until 1948 that when we became a modern state, we took on the name Israel, hearkening back to our ancient, our story in the Torah and connecting it all the way to modern day. So, I found some of this learning fascinating and wanted to share it with you. So, some of the questions I'm thinking about: in what ways can a country's name reflect its nature? Each of the names for the land of Israel carries some historical and cultural significance. We didn't even talk about the land being called Canaan, or Canaan, as it was with Abraham through Jacob. And Judah and Israel and Syrian Palestine, Palestine, Eretz Yisrael. We didn't even mention that. That's another name for Israel. So what does the act of naming something convey? What kind of relationship does it create between the giver of the name and the recipient? And how does a name shape the recipient's identity? And anything else you would like to discuss on this topic of names and Israel and Palestine? So, Michael.
I was going to say, I saw this stamp that people keep posting online to be like, look, Palestine existed forever, whatever. And it's like a picture of the Temple Mount, and then it's like, it says Palestine. It says Palestine in Arabic. And it says Palestine in Hebrew, but if you look at the Hebrew, on the end, it has parentheses, and it has an Aleph Yud, Eretz Yisrael.
Yes. And
people will post this and be like, Israel, see, even it says in Hebrew, Palestine. And I'm like, it literally says Eretz Yisrael right there. Yeah, and I don't know. All the stuff that you just talked about, people don't talk about enough. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing that. Yes, Eretz Yisrael is another name for that region, and it was even the Aleph Yud Eretz Yisrael starts with an Aleph for Eretz and Yud for Yisrael, was the land of Israel stamped on the coin. Jesse.
I guess on the topic of like, what does it mean when someone gets to name the land, who gives the name and the recipients? I guess it denotes like ownership, I guess, or power over the land. Like what he said, there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, look at this map from here, it says Palestine. And then even now you see like modern like graphics on the internet, like here's the real names of these places that are in Israel and whatever. And people trying to, erasure of, Israel. So it's like almost like this power thing or ownership thing. Like if we use our names for it, then we own it. If someone else uses their own names, then it's like an affront to someone. So it's, I guess, when you name something, it denotes you have some kind of right to it or ownership of it.
Right, being able to name it is that power, that ownership. Thank you.
I just thought it was interesting if the Philistines were where the Gaza Strip is, and they were the Israelites' biggest enemy, that they've kind of taken up that role again because they still live there, maybe.
But they don't. That's the point. That's the point of my teaching today. It's ironic that the name is the similar. So yes, yeah, okay. But it's not that it's not their descendants. That's what I want to teach today, if nothing else. Okay. Other comments, thoughts about names, naming countries? Oh, wait, we got one here. Okay. Bringing it forward. Hal?
In essence, the tradition continues in naming people after someone or some place even today. I would guess that most of us in the shul right now were named after someone who came before us to honor those people. So the naming of babies continues to be an honoring system for those who have come before us rather than necessarily a place.
So when we're talking about individuals naming human beings in honor of, and some people have this, that tradition in Ashkenazic after somebody who is no longer alive, in Sephardic tradition after somebody who's still alive, and giving a connection to that lineage. Yeah. So just as a person's name can reflect who they are or insights who they might grow to be, so does each of the names for land of Israel have a deep and historical significance. And we've touched on some of them like Judah, Judea, Israel, Palestine, Syrian Palestine, Eretz Yisrael, and today Medinat Yisrael. At this critical junction in Israel's history, we pray that the people living in the modern state of Israel will soon see all the hostages returned home, and with the Palestinians, along with others in the region, a time of long-lasting peace. Shabbat Shalom. So we turn now in our Siddur to page 374. Page 374. As we're able, we rise as we return the Torah to the Ark. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Kekedem. We remain standing as we turn to page 586. 586 at the bottom of the page for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'kol, l'keit gedula li'yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu kagei haratzot, velo samanu k'mizbachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kohem, v'gohar aleinu kircho hamonam,
V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlakim hakadosh baruch hu v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lamelech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. We turn our thoughts and prayers now to those who are no longer with us, and so we turn in our Siddur, in our prayer books, to page 598 and 599 in the brackets, as we think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us during this period of Shiva and Shloshim. We remember Gail Ligori, sister of Flora Hans, aunt of Brian, Hans, and Ellen, great-aunt of Max, Hans and Anne-Marie, and Sophie Hans. We remember Marlene Herbst, mother of Allison Marchant and Lewis, grandmother of Justin and Rachel, wife of the late Harold. We remember Robert Levine, who is the brother of the late Rabbi Richard Levine, brother-in-law of Judy, uncle of Ari, Ron, Brian, Jason, Deborah, Matt, Samantha, Yael and Shira and their spouses. Carol Levine, who's the mother of Evan Levine and Linda, grandmother of Lewin and Challen. Alex Rudolph, father of Stacy Crafton and Jeremy, grandfather of Jake and Zach. Charlotte Elner, our founding member, wife of the late Jerome Elner, mother of Ken Elner and Karen Fetterman Elner. And we think of those who died at the season in years past, whose yahrzeits we mark on this Shabbat. Marilyn Cheskis Lear, Alvin Elner, Ruth Fink, John Fleischner, Frank Gardner, Nathan Hirsch, Franklin Krasner, Judy LaRusso, Stanton Oliver, Stanley N. Starbecker, Phyllis Sussman, Mitchell Warwick. And if there's other names to add, if you're joining us through the blessing of technology, feel free to add those in the chat now. And as my hand passes through the congregation, please feel free to add those names aloud at this time. We take those into our hearts as our own. We think of all those for whom there is no one to say Kaddish for. Zichronam levracha. May their memories be for blessing as we continue now with the words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam omeo maya, yit barak v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh, v'yit adar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shemei dekudasha b'riachu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, amen. May be seated. Are there any hodaot, any announcements to share at this time? Oh, Mazel Tov, Federation job. Nice. We'll hear more about it at the Kiddush. And we are thanking, who are we thanking Larry for Kiddush? Thank you. And Judy. I also want to, this is sort of a whole social action, social justice weekend. Last night we had social action Shabbat. Tomorrow we are going at the men's club brunch, which starts at 9 for eating and 9:30 for our keynote speaker. 9:30, Rabbi Lance Sussman will be teaching about Jews and slavery, which is especially important during this Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. And then, of course, on Monday, we will be doing our MLK Day Tikkun Olam mitzvah projects here starting at 10 a.m. I hope you're able to return at some point in any of those activities. And Larry's class, the Hebrew class, if you're still interested in learning and you want to hop on in the middle, it's not too much in the middle. It's still the beginning because of the snow day. It got pushed along a little bit. Okay, for our closing song, let's turn to page, let's see if I can, I have to translate from the brackets. So 657, and the brackets at the bottom of the page, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, peace will come upon us. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu. Od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Shabbat shalom.